Track 1. The kids aren't all right. Even after weaving the fray, the children of Eden still endured, and the beginning of the contributors' crucible, as well as the start of the Sprouts internship, had finally arrived, and Unit 13 couldn't afford to fall apart. Hope, in Unit 13, was the kind you handled gently, like a flower, the kind that made you count the hours until you're called back home where it was safe. The one who went by Jet accepted that fear might never be beaten, so he endured, soaking it in and using it as fuel to give himself a shot to fight another day, betting on himself that he could outlast the odds. His younger brother Joel had learned a different way to withstand it. He figured out early on that fear could be veiled. He hid from it, moving about it without making noise, saving his largest wager for when it mattered most. Their clean yet cluttered unit breathed light humidity. A distinct smell drifted in the air. Heat rolled off the small stovetop. Their mother, Daisy, swore added flavor, even though every meal came from a weathered pump attached to the wall marked with a white flower. Stayed on? They'd at least have something stayed on. They'd at least have something to eat. And as long as you performed, you were safe enough. Once quick to bark orders before sunrise, his hope of preservation now held on by a thread. He was more sighs than screams now. Jet jumped off the top bunk in their room and past the wall of harmony on his way to grab a drink. He'd stopped to hang his niece Bianca's kit in the hallway, but his sister Dorothy's frame caught the light and pulled him in. Her reflection hovered beside him. He smoothed, rubbed his fingers over his buzzed hair, tugged at his fitted shirt, and looked longer than he meant to. Standing beside her always made it easier to breathe. To Jet, the wall wasn't tribute. It was motivation. Then a voice interrupted his ritual. "Why are you looking at yourself?" Maddox called from behind him. Jet caught one last glimpse before he walked away with a string from his kit in his hand. A Crucible poster read on one side, "Flyers always finish first." Maddox pressed a hand to the edge of the table. It moved in a way only he could see. He crouched, analyzing the joint beneath the crown, with slow, careful glares. He mumbled something to himself as he looked around, waiting for someone to offer some assistance that he didn't need. The table barely rocked under Maddox's palm. He sat beside it now, securing the joint. Jet stepped forward first to offer some sort of support. One of the brothers always did. Joel looked at Bianca, then looked back and thought, "Can you guess how this story is going to end? Are you good? Do you want help?" Jet asked cautiously. "No," Maddox shot back. Jet flinched. Maddox kept his head down, wrench turning in slow, pointless circles, and muttered, "What did you do to this table?" Jet blinked. "I didn't do anything." "Yeah, okay," Maddox said, annoyed, still working the bolt that had already tightened. "Well, someone broke it. This is what happens when you rush." Jet shook his head and sighed. Maddox mumbled to himself as held the table a moment longer than it needed, palm flat against the surface, like he was waiting for it hold. It did. It always did. He could fix anything if he really wanted to. The wall of harmony watched over the room long after Jet moved on from it. The curator's code glistened in its frame, the same words printed on every packet and every broadcast. The three laws of Eden that carried the kind of weight that made people believe only his design could save a dying world. And if you broke the code, you didn't just get punished, you got noticed. Below the code hung generations of portraits, each with a ribbon and a small plaque marked "Preserved" underneath it. The older ones had faded with age, but the wall still glowed where it mattered. Dorothy's shone brightest, their niece, Bianca's mother, smiling like all the rest. Receiving preservation helped keep the quiet from unraveling the fray. The walls stood as proof that those preserved still served through their loved ones. Joel laid in his bed, wishing he was still asleep. Hair covered his face as when he finally got up. He stuffed some papers under his mattress and walked slowly through the hallway to quench his thirst. He stopped before the wall. He didn't look to see how his kit looked in the glass. His eyes moved over each face, the ones who'd already done their part, until they stopped on Dorothy. She was the only one who ever called him by his real name. But that was long ago. The thought came and went. To Joel, the wall wasn't hope, it was instruction. A house poster read on one side, "Drafters rise to the top." Daisy's reflection moved faintly in the glass behind him. His eyes lingered, wondering if hers would ever meet his. As Joel walked back to their room, he stopped again where the tile floor changed. One square shaped like it should be a 14-petaled flower, almost like the curator's crest, but not exactly. This one had each petal etched with tiny loops that spiraled toward a center no one had ever named. His father said it must be a flourish of an artist long ago, maybe someone's way of escaping. Joel liked that thought. One petal was missing, though, snapped clean at the base. He analyzed it, wondering how the pattern should have closed. The missing piece had been broken off for as long as he could remember, like it was on its own adventure. Everyone else stepped over it. He never could. Bianca kept looking up from the drafter's table at the words under her mom. "The garden thrives by preservation." And then away, back to her untouched plate. Short like the rest of her unit, long hair pulled into a too-tight tie. Strands turned and turned in her hand. Maddox noticed her playing around. "Don't even think about wasting those rations." "I'm not hungry," Bianca responded honestly. Then Daisy chimed in. "Bianca, eat, little bunny. Why are you playing games?" Daisy said, more focused on her chores. Daisy was moving the whole time, always moving. Hair falling out of its clip, the curator's crest clicking against her cup, a dish towel over one shoulder she kept forgetting to use. "You're a senior sprout now, old enough to run with the contributors. You'll need your strength. The internship tests more than speed. It tests patience more," Daisy continued, still in the kitchen. "So, is it strength or patience that is most important?" "You're confusing me again." "I don't know what you mean sometimes," Bianca said, barely above a whisper as she played a move against herself on the board. She pulled a small clump of hair from her head. Daisy was too distracted to notice. Maddox brushed it off. "Not real strength, little B," Jet said with a grin as he stretched out his restless legs. "What they're really testing is the kind of strength that keeps you smiling while you're choking down paste." Joel was still listening. He crouched beside the inlaid flower, tracing each loop with his finger. When he reached the break where the petal was missing, he slowed, studying what it could mean. His hand hovered there, as if the answer were still hiding in the tile. A faint vibration moved through the floor. Every cup on the table quivered once, then stilled. The rations on the table caught Jet's ever-moving eyes. He flew to it. "Ah, biohost." "Mm-hmm. Yummy," he said, scooping a bite and holding it to his eye. Am I tasting a different flavor today? You couldn't get me to share my rations. The smaller portions always taste better after cycles end anyway. It's a reward for our high performance. He lifted the spoon like a glass and gave a toast to the curator's colors. Daisy laughed. Jet, you could host a fray day if you really wanted to, Daisy said excitedly. So not the curator's blood mixer then? Asked Jet with a laugh. Maybe one day, Daisy responded happily. Yeah, you can host all of Eden's celebrations. Just try not to stutter too much, Joel said sarcastically. Jet looked down. Then Maddox's voice cut, his eyes looking at the small portion on his plate. Give your toasts. I just need you to get through today. Jet went back to stretching, pulling up his socks that wouldn't stay still. Still smiling, Daisy turned back to the sink and raised her voice like the air itself had been waiting for her. Breathe in, Frey. She sang bright, full, and just a little off key. No one spoke. They just let her sing. The sound stretched softly between them. Her voice filled the unit, gentle as prayer. The air shivered. Joel stayed seated on the floor, but then raised a hand slightly and said, To the golden boy. Joel watched and waited for his brother's next move. As he always did. Jet froze mid-bite, the spoon hovering. The old grin arrived a second late. Yup, he said, a little too low, lowering it to his plate. That's me. Joel caught the half-second lag between truth and smile. Joel shook his head and laughed low, with a smirk on his face. Jet's tone picked back up quick. Yeah, it's real funny. And you have no idea what I'm even laughing at, replied Joel, still giggling. Jet looked at his brother confused. He couldn't remember the last time he'd even seen him smile. And in that moment, Joel's eyes couldn't be any wider. Will you two knock it off? Maddox cut in, his tone sharp and loud. The old father still left traces. Maddox's eyes stayed on the light of Melody, the red light glowing steadily against the wall like it was magically going to change. He then looked towards his wall of harmony, the way a man might look at both the wound and the scar. That light might be red, he paused and pointed, but it isn't black. And that's because of me, he said, half to the room, half to himself, then putting a hand to his chest once. The brothers saw the wrinkles in his forehead move. Daisy twisted the towel like a rope. My honey girl did her part, so we continue to do ours, she said too quickly. The curator provides preservation to those who give back as well, even if the flower was out of season. Bianca's glance pinged from her mother's portrait to the red light and back again. Her mother, Dorothy, had been preserved years ago. Not lost, not gone, preserved, waiting in Eden East. Legs made a small sound on the floor. Legs made a small sound on the floor, a sound the room knew. I'm a survivor. I'll make it as long as I can, he said, gazing toward the wall of harmony again. Daisy's eyes flicked quickly to it as well and then away. Soon, she repeated, almost to herself. Soon enough the curator will call us too. Bianca looked at her and echoed her with pride. To Eden East. To Eden East, the unit replied in various volumes. Where the sun will rise first, Daisy said warmly. Maddox said nothing, which said enough. But Eden East isn't done yet, Joel said, eyes still fixed on the broken petal. Which means Eden must come first, which means you must come first, Your internship begins today, the start of everything you've worked for, Joel said, voice even. Joel continued, you'll be just fine. You're already smarter than most of the team leaders anyway. But you'll never be smarter than me, though, he said, just stating a fact. Bianca chuckled and shot back. Why won't you play me in the drafters table then? Are you scared? No, because I'm too good, obviously. It wouldn't be fair. Across the table, Jet shot him a look and rolled his eyes. Bianca rolled hers as well. Jet interjected, yeah, the internship isn't something to worry about. You have to start somewhere. It's just the bottom of the ladder. You do what you have to do and climb your way up. What is there to be afraid of? Just work hard and everything will pay off. Bianca couldn't help but smile, but it didn't last long. Her hand was now playing with a piece on the board instead of her hair. She whispered, but what if I don't end up with either of you? What if I get recommended to a different division? Bianca could be recommended by the fray to a different division. And if she did, she wouldn't be with them. The room went still. Even Daisy's hands paused on the towel. Jet barked a laugh first. Relax. You're a flyer. Like me. It's the red and black. Fire and blood. Where your fear will get left at the starting line. You'll run through the garden, and they'll leave everyone in your dust. You'll be right there with me. He gave her a wink. Joel's tone stayed level. Stop. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The gray and white suits you better anyway, Ash and Stone, he said from the floor. Drafters don't chase glory, we build it. We don't have to wear the bad color just to prove we aren't afraid. Jet caught it, not the comfort, but the opening, and filled it before something not welcome could. Oh yeah? He asked. Now Joel, remind me again. Why do drafters wear gray and white? At least we have some of the curator's colors on our backs, he said, with a stare, grin returning, a little too wide. They like the banter, sometimes. Enough. Will you now stop? Maddox cut in. The play stopped. Joel couldn't argue with him anyway. He didn't know why drafters wore the hues not present in the curator's colors. No one did. Daisy's smile appeared instantly, fragile and wide. The curator designs all placement, doesn't he? Always fair, always right. An awkward silence stirred. Win the quarter and the final gate opens sooner. Win and you're first to preservation, Bianca said innocently. The room paused for a second to think about what it would mean for Unit 13 if they actually won it. Everyone closed their eyes in that moment. Then Daisy gasped, oh my. I forgot. The blooming. Wiping her hands and folding them tight. She grabbed the closest hands next to her, and the other palms cascaded down the line. Jet bowed his head with the thought of his race swirling in his head. Joel rolled his eyes, but bowed his anyway. He wanted his brother to win. It just wasn't a guarantee. Nothing in this world was. Performance and preservation are the two pillars of Eden, she said, not reading, reciting from a place that never had to check. In Eden, we perform. In Eden, we preserve. In Eden, we survive the shadow. Bianca had squeezed the hand she grabbed so hard that her fingers hurt. Daisy's cadence never faltered. Each line landed like a metronome tick keeping the world in order. This was her way of performing, of sustaining the fray one steady breath at a time. The rest of the unit echoed the blooming, except Joel. For a second, their voices landed on the same beat, and the lights in the vent flickered, like the room approved of harmony more than hunger. Maddox's voice came low and steady, not to any one of them, but to the air that held them all. Just run. Jet stood at attention. Joel wasn't. Joel knew the words came easy now, practiced from years of saying them, but the conviction had thinned. He spoke like a man who had accepted that preservation wouldn't come for him. Not soon, maybe not ever. Still, he said it, because maybe saying it kept the spark alive. Because maybe one day, the house might just blink. Joel followed his father's lost gaze, then felt the pull of a different gravity and looked at Jet staring at his father. His legs didn't look as restless. He looked lighter. He looked ready to run. Then, earlier than expected, 3 knocks came at the door. The sound split the air open just wide enough to breathe. The sound found every surface and placed itself there. Bianca froze. Daisy's hands, mid-reach for a cup, stopped and stayed. Maddox's chair finished the inch it had left and settled. The two at the table rose together, chairs back, napkins on plates, eyes to the wall and then to the door. Maddox's voice, steady, yet broken in the small room. Don't keep the house waiting. Daisy pleaded one last time for her sons. Keep their steps, O curator. Maddox stepped away from his chair and walked around the table. Jet lowered his head. Maddox's hand hovered just above Jet's collar, not touching, but close enough that the air between them stiffened. Jet mustered everything inside him in an attempt to read his father. If I find out you were anywhere near the Wanderer's Ale or the Elderflower, so help me, he said, with a snarl so low only Jet could hear. Jet didn't dare to touch it again. Jet nodded out of fear. Okay, Dad. Now, stand tall, do your duty, and run. That's all that's asked of you. Okay, Dad, Jet responded, trying to collect himself. The sound of Maddox's breath carried more quit than it ever had before, like the dream was lengths ahead of him. Joel almost spoke, but then stopped. The sound of it landed heavily on Joel. His brother looked more ready than he'd ever seen him. Joel realized something he'd never cared to see before. It hit him that maybe Jet's running wasn't for glory anymore, but to keep from standing still. Jet stood there waiting for anything else. A word, a look, something that might prove this calm was real, that maybe his father had finally turned a corner. Joel waited too. Still, Jet took what he could get. Maddox straightened the crease he hadn't made. I gave you enough credits for a new pair of shoes. I'll see you at the end of Q1, he said, leaving the table silent in his wake. Jet's face stayed low for a second too long, suspended in disbelief. Then Maddox turned to his second son, Joel. Yeah, Dad? Work your magic. Okay, Dad. And then, again, in a low voice, Daisy sang. In Bloom. The unit responded, forever rooted. Bianca slid her hand toward Jet's without thinking. It revived him. Jet took her hand, let it rest with his, palm to palm, gave a squeeze and then let it go before he placed his hands on her shoulders and said, Hey, go get changed. Your kid is in the hallway. Bianca did as she was told. Bianca's hand had steadied Jet like a pulse, returning to rhythm. The change was small, a shift in his breathing, the spark behind his eyes, but Joel logged it the way drafters logged data: stimulus, response, result. Jet rolled his shoulders, shaking off the last of something still clinging. Joel took his time, getting off the floor, and found a position next to his brother. Maddox stepped forward. Daisy smoothed the tablecloth, where there was no wrinkle, and touched the pendant at her throat like it could answer the door for her. The knock came again. Same 3 taps, same careful spacing. A knock that would give release to the brothers. A knock that would change their lives forever. Joel glanced once at Jet again. A look and nothing else. The kind that could become 1,000 things later. Jet straightened, a thread left his hand, and the old showman's spark came to the surface once more. Joel didn't move. He was already still, already gone behind the veil. He watched his brother rehearse his confidence while he hid his own. The handle turned. 2 figures filled the doorway, but only one spoke, the one in front. A child of Eden. Family 13, correct? She tilted her head, voice clipped but practiced, and added almost like a note in a ledger. A wilted petal. The room shrunk for Unit 13. Within the haze, the faint red light still burned steady on the wall, the color of a home still hoping.